I started talking about music on YouTube. We're coming up on 4 years. And if you were to tell me 4 years ago that I would get test pressings for an audiophile one-step release mailed to my home in advance of the actual release, I wouldn't have believed it. That's where we are. That's what's happened here at my home 2 weeks ago. I received a text message from who's really becoming a pretty close friend, although we've never met in person, Steve Westman, of course, of his show that I sometimes appear on called the Audiophiles Roundtable. Is that the title? I think that's the title. Steve, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. It was a big surprise when he broke the news on his show back in, I'm thinking, mid-October. He had Tom Grover Beery, who is in charge of the Definitive Sound series, an offshoot of Interscope Records. I think I have all that right. They announced that they're going to be doing an audiophile pressing, a limited release with the one-step technology, mastered by Chris Bellman. They're going to package together Chronic Town, the 1982 EP, and then the first full-length album from R.E.M, Murmur, 1983. They're going to package these together in a limited edition slipcase. Grover has gone on about the lengths that they have taken to authentically replicate the actual correct tone on the gargoyle in the background for Chronic Town, which I think is just fantastic. These are going to be in very nice, high-quality archival sleeves. And so 2 weeks ago, the test pressings showed up direct from RTI. One for Chronic Town, and of course the second for Murmur. These are going to be 33 RPM, which I absolutely love. I'll buy the occasional 45 RPM audiophile reissue. Look at the Steely Dan UHQRs on my shelf. But having these things at 33 RPM, remastered by Chris Bellman, fantastic. And I'm here to tell you today, after many, many listens and comparing to the pristine originals that I have, these are both translucent. These are both, they were pressed at Electrosound Midwest, EMW into Dead Wax for both Chronic Town and Murmur. Near mint copies. I was super pleased with what I was hearing on these one steps. I was hearing more. That's kind of the cut to the chase moment for me. I was hearing more. And as Grover said in the roundtable that he did with Mitch Easter and Don Dixon, those guys agreed. It sounded like Bellman went back to the original master tapes, and there's just a little bit more on the tapes transferred onto this very high quality Neotech audiophile grade vinyl that is drop dead silent. There is zero noise floor. And the energy that exudes from both of these is fantastic. Let's go back to the beginning. Mitch Easter was enlisted to record Chronic Town in his home garage studio called Drive-In Studios, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. The Chronic Town EP, fast on the heels of the Radio Free Europe 7-inch that was originally issued on Hibtone. It was a very cool turnaround. And REM delivered 5 songs that were evocative, mysterious. They had a timeless feel. They were songs that you really couldn't kind of put your finger on and, put on a shelf in a certain area or a certain genre. They were coming from a tight band that had definitely came together on the road, countless gigs along the eastern seaboard. This was the result, and it is breathtaking. Even the original, which I thought couldn't be bested, mastered at sterling sound by a renowned mastering engineer, Greg Kelby, who also did Murmur. These songs jump out of the speakers with the one step. So 5 songs that are really otherworldly. And I remember coming to this EP after discovering Murmur. I had to go back and catch up with Chronic Town. And it was really eye-opening. Of course, I had heard Radio Free Europe. And in 1983, I was a junior in high school when Murmur came out. I bought it on cassette. Wolves Lower is the opening track on the first side, which is titled Chronic Town. The flip side is Poster Torn. Something interesting that R.E.M. would continue through the IRS years. It wouldn't be just side 1, side 2. Wolves Lower. It wasn't supposed to be on the EP originally until IRS had a little bit of a word and a conference, and they thought that there were 2 other songs that were originally going to be on Chronic Town. I've got notes here because I'm old. I can't remember all this stuff. Ages of You and Jazz Lips. Both of those were nixed in favor of Wolves Lower, but the original cut of Wolves Lower was too fast. So they went back in the spring of 1982, a quickie, back to the drive-in studios with Mitch Easter, and they re-recorded Wolves Lower, and that is what you find on side 1, cut 1. A fantastic song. I have a few notes, listening notes, that I'm going to share with you. Before I get to my notes, what I had to do here, I couldn't not contact my friend Charles here in Fort Collins, Colorado, who owns a record shop called Driver 8 Records. And guess what? Charles is originally from Athens, Georgia. Charles is a supreme R.E.M. head. If there is an R.E.M. head anywhere, you can count Charles as being definitely a member. Before I did today's video, I had to stop by and pick up the 2 test pressings back from Charles, and I wanted to get a quick reaction from Charles on what he thought, so let's roll that.
Thanks, Tim, for letting me check out these test pressings, the one step of Chronic Town and Murmur. I can report after 3 or 4 listens, I think they sound great. I think Mike Mills, both his bass and his vocals, really stand out. They sound better than the originals that I've played on a very modest system. I've already purchased these, and I'm just waiting for them to show up.
Very cool. Thanks, Charles. I was happy to put those in your hands for a few days, and I'm reclaiming them now.
More R.E.M.
All right, take care. So I agree wholeheartedly with Charles. Yes, there is more bass response on both of these one-step recordings, pressings. The bass is a little more elevated in the mix. There's just more of everything, more goodness. And you are hearing nuances that I'm not hearing on the originals. And the fact that these records are absolutely silent, no noise floor, no surface noise, it's even better. The notes that I have on Chronic Town, First of all, Gardening at Night, track 2, side 1. I love Michael Stipe's kind of what is that? It's kind of a delicate vocal that he's delivering at a slightly higher, not a falsetto, but a slightly higher pitch. And it just works fantastically well. Of course, all over Chronic Town, the die was set. A signature sound from R.E.M., courtesy of Peter Buck. The jangle, the Rickenbacker, the constant clean arpeggios all over the record. And there's also a lot of layered acoustic on a couple different songs as well that are really accentuated with these new pressings. So before we get to a little bit of a discussion about what I think the new pressing of Murmur sounds like, let's just go back and look at the history briefly. So remember, after Chronic Town sold 20,000 copies in its first year for an EP that was fantastic in 1982. Management of R.E.M. decided, well, first of all, they needed to get a record contract. They were courted, and they eventually signed with IRS. And IRS thought, you know what? For the full album, let's take this band and let's kind of go for the gold here. And let's put them together with a real up-and-comer record producer named Stephen Hague out of Boston. Stephen Hague, of course, went on to work with Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, New Order, etc., Pet Shop Boys. It wasn't a good mix. Stephen Hague put R.E.M. through the ringer on various tracks that eventually made their way to Murmur. There are stories out there about Stephen Hague recording Bill Berry and Bill Berry's drum track 40, 50 times for a particular track. And wanting to maybe even suggest that maybe the band should lose Bill Berry. And do what? Are we going to use drum machines in 1983? That's what else was happening out there, right? The band said, we're out of here. They talked to IRS, and they convinced IRS to go back to Mitch Easter. IRS said, okay, let's do a couple test cuts with Mitch Easter in a pro studio. So they went to Creation in Charlotte, North Carolina. 2 songs were tested, Catapult and Pilgrimage. Those were trial balloons for Mitch Easter together with close friend Don Dixon. This is a great record, by the way, if you can find it. Praying Mantis was the single. After IRS heard the finished mixed down tracks for Catapult and Pilgrimage, the project was green-lit with Mitch Easter and Don Dixon co-producing at Creation Studios in Charlotte. And we got a wonderful record called Murmur, released in 1983. Punch, slam. Oh, hey. Sorry for the brief interruption. I've got a special announcement. I'm excited about this. Hopefully you will be too. I'm going to be launching my new newsletter in the new year. It's going to be hosted on Substack. It's really simple to join if you would like to subscribe. I'm going to have a free and a paid tier. I'm going to be writing about things that you probably already know that I like to talk about here on YouTube. I'm just going to be expanding and kind of scratching another itch creatively for myself. Let's get back to today's video, but stay tuned. Someone's already, wait a minute, stay tuned. I will be letting everyone know when and where to sign up. Thank you for your attention. This was named, I think it was in the top 5 by Village Voice. Rolling Stone magazine may have named it the album of the year. What an incredible record. What an incredible statement. The musicianship on here is just amazing. And when I talk about musicianship, let's talk about Michael Stipe's vocals. There was a slang alternative title for this. It was called Mumble. Not Murmur, Mumble. Michael Stipe's kind of vocal phrasing and lack of enunciation, it was its own instrument. He kind of sang melodies as needed to match the song. It was no oversight that there was no lyrics included with Murmur or Chronic Town for that matter as well. He eventually began to enunciate later on as R.E.M. kind of moved along. And there are tracks on Murmur where you can clearly pick up phrases. But there are other long passages where you have no idea what Michael Stipe is saying. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. One of the amazing songs on Murmur is Perfect Circle. It's the last closing track on side 1. That has Bill Berry and Mike Mills on 2 different pianos. Don Dixon decided it needed just a basic bottom anchor, and he laid down a real simple bass track for that song. The evocative lyrics from Michael Stipe, just an amazing piece of work. One of my favorite songs on this record is Sitting Still. Peter Buck's arpeggio is so clean, so distinct, so repetitive, perfectly played. And then you have a counterpoint with Mike Mills's bass lines. Mike Mills, what an athletic, muscular bass guitar player. Some of these bass runs and bass figures that he came up with as counterpoints to either what Peter Buck was doing or Bill Berry's beats, absolutely amazing, and they cut through. And they're not overly inflated on the one steps at all, but they are more present. They have a little more body, a little more shove. So, hey, to close, I want to thank Tom Grover Beery. I want to thank Steve Westman for the assist, for getting me these test pressings and allowing me to get kind of a sneak peek. It's been a thrill. I definitely ordered my own copy because I'm really curious to see what the package is going to look like. I think it's going to be amazing. I think I've heard through the grapevine that they are currently closing in on 2,000 copies sold. That's amazing on less than a week of sales of a brand new limited release. Remember MoFi did those several titles from R.E.M. I don't know what the feedback is on those titles as far as sound quality, but they're pretty expensive. I've run across a few in shops. This is going for, what is it, $124.98, $125 for the EP and the first album, Chronic Town and Murmur. Personally, I think it's a no-brainer. I'm looking forward to, these are going to ship, I think, on December 10th. So if you're interested, hopefully I've helped answer some questions. This is my honest opinion. I think they're a home run. I love the kind of the uniqueness that we're getting both of them packaged in a slipcase, numbered, limited. There's no promise that these will be repressed. They probably would not be repressed together in a similar package, but who knows? That's it. Highly recommended. And if these things sell out, which I hope they do soon, Grover has already mentioned that there have been preliminary talks about maybe moving on to Reckoning next, which would be fantastic. Take care, everybody, and for everybody in the United States, happy Thanksgiving. I'm filming this on Wednesday afternoon. Yes, I am spatchcocking my turkey again and throwing it on the smoker. Looking forward to it. Take care.